You're listening to the Trade Show Insights Podcast, Season 10, Episode 3. Today marks the first in our new Trade Show Trailblazer series, which will feature trend-setting trade shows of all sizes and representing all types of industries, offering you a backstage pass to the secrets of their success. Today we'll be discussing ways that shows can build a more consultative relationship with their exhibitors, why show audits are important, and how to make your show more experiential. Welcome to our very first call of the new Trade Show Trailblazer series. We've got a great guest for you today. With more than 27 years of professional sales and leadership experience, Dan Cole spent the last 16 of those years as Vice President of Business Development for the International CES, or you probably know it as the Consumer Electronics Show, and the organization which produces it, the Consumer Electronics Association. He began his career in the trade show industry in 1992 as a National Accounts Manager for National Trade Productions, progressing there to Sales Director, and then went on to hold a number of important executive positions at companies such as Advanstar and Yellow Bricks. He's won numerous sales and leadership awards, including IAW's Most Outstanding Sales and Marketing Executive, the International Business Awards Most Outstanding Sales Executive, and was recognized by Dealerscope magazine's 40 Under 40. Recently, he became the Senior Vice President for Trade Shows and Exhibits at Hargrove, Inc., one of the top general contractors and event producers in the U.S. He's a highly sought-after writer, speaker, and sales trainer in the trade show industry, and Dan is enthusiastic about his new role at Hargrove. Welcome, Dan.
Thank you, Marla. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Well, I think you are a perfect guest to start out this new series because you are certainly the definition of a trailblazer in the trade show industry. I mean, you started over 16 years ago with the International CES, and I'm sure most everybody listening to this is very familiar with the show, whether they've ever had the opportunity to actually attend or exhibit. But tell us a little bit about some of that history. Compare where International CES was when you started with where it is now as far as exhibitors, attendees, square footage. I mean, if you don't have exact numbers, that's fine, but just kind of give us a ballpark of what that 16 years looked like for you.
Well, you're very kind to insinuate that I was responsible for major changes. I certainly am proud of the fact that I played a part. When I first started in the mid-'90s, I had been there in the mid-'90s and come back later in 2001. So that's where we get the total of 16 years. But the show has always enjoyed a great deal of success since its inception in 1967 by the great Jack Lehman, founder, and now under the leadership of Gary Shapiro and Karen Chupka, two people that I consider close friends of mine and gave me the opportunity for such a long time at CES. When I first started in the mid-'90s, again, a very successful show. I think, if I remember correctly, just south of a million square feet in the 900, 800,000 square foot range. I can't be exact. And then just recently, the current team finished up over 2.2 million square feet. So the show has come a long way. And it's through the great efforts of wonderful teammates that I got to work with throughout the years in all departments, not just the sales and business development department or division, if you will, but every single component of CEA, whether it's membership to every department involved or division like marketing, operations, communications, all sorts of people, conferences that were involved in the effort. And probably most importantly, our great attendees and exhibitors who make the show possible. Their buy-in and their belief in the show, not to mention the good majority of which are members of CEA on a volunteer basis, or a lot of them volunteer their time. They all contribute to the success of the event. It's been a was a great ride for me, and I know there are many, many, many more years of success ahead for CES, or the International CES, I should say.
Well, and I think you hit on a really good point there when you, and I realize it wasn't something that you accomplished on your own, and I know that you are a big advocate for team mentality within the show production and especially within exhibitor sales. And you took a very different approach from a lot of shows as far as having a very customer-focused, strategic, consultative approach to booth sales. So can you tell us a little bit more about that? And how?
Sure. I'm very proud of that, and very proud of the sales force who really adopted this, and frankly of our executive management that without a doubt supported it. I think when I first got there, one of the things I was used to doing from my prior sales experience is really developing relationships with customers on a one-to-one basis, and certainly CES was involved in that endeavor as well. Our group thinking was, again, even outside of the sales department, that it would be important to get on those planes and go visit customers and prospects on their turf and really initiate and sustain and grow relationships with our prospects and customers. It wasn't that it wasn't done. It was just that we could augment and enhance that overall relationship. From a consultative standpoint, I think some of what we did was transactional, and we took it to another level, whereby I'll tell you, one of the things that was a big part of our business development when growing the business and growing the relationships is that we emphasize the benefits of membership at CEA. Again, I mentioned before that a lot of our exhibitors, our customers, were also members of CEA. And I think in working with our membership team, we helped evangelize the benefits of membership at CEA, of which was participation at CES. So we really went out there. I call it the blank legal pad appointment. Sometimes it was our presentation, but most importantly, we sat down there, myself and the business development manager, the sales executive, with a blank legal pad and said, we're here to listen. We're not here to sell you anything. We want to listen to what's important to you. And it doesn't matter if you're a 10 by 10 or an 80 by 80, what is important to you as it relates to CEA, as it relates to CES. What are your goals and objectives? What are you trying to accomplish? Why choose us? How are we standing out versus what at the time was our competition in terms of Comdex and other events? And with regard to business issues, whether it's market share or brand equity, profit, loss, what have you, what challenges are you facing in that regard, or in those regards, if you will? And we'd be able to, thankfully, what I taught was custom tailor solutions of the show to those business issues and to those challenges and to those voids and to those objectives. So it wasn't about, my friend Mike Smoyer coined this phrase a long time ago, selling concrete in a convention center. It wasn't about that. It was talking about an experience, that's one of the reasons I'm so excited about Hargrove, because that's the key word here. It was talking about, as I mentioned, an experience, a return on objectives rather than just a return on investment, ROI versus ROO or both. So we spent a good time in dialogue, not monologue, not talking down, but talking with customers. And I think they really, some of them were in a state of shock. No one has ever come out and visited me. No one has ever had this type of discussion with me, with us. They sort of took our business for granted. We heard that a lot, and I think it was much appreciated. And there are relationships to this day that I still enjoy personally and that I'm grateful for, that came as a result of my interaction with customers at CES.
Well, and I think that's so critical, like you said, to build a relationship. I can't tell you how many times I hear from exhibitors across the country, the only time we ever hear from show management is when it's time for us to sign the new contract or buy a sponsorship or whatever. They don't really feel like they're appreciated. And I think that that's one of the keys is you were making them feel appreciated. You were making them feel listened to and understood. So what were some of the things that came out of some of those conversations? Were there ideas and concepts and suggestions that were made that then you were able to implement on the show floor?
Of course, and I'll tell you that's another aspect of Hargrove, because from an experience standpoint, that I get to parlay my experience here with that sort of belief and perception. We did a lot of things at CES, whether it's it's something as simple or as complex as a theater on the show floor, incorporating our conferences as part of the event, or developing what we called tech zones, which other shows use the word pavilion. So if we were talking to a customer who specialized, who had expertise obviously in a vertical sector, and wanted to demonstrate their ownership or their thought leadership in this particular sector, they might sponsor a pavilion or a partner's pavilion, which we would call a tech zone, on the show floor. Many shows, I realize, do this, but that gave them an additional branding opportunity. To this day, there's a very rich, and I don't mean that from a lucrative standpoint, but a very, very involved, comprehensive promotional opportunities program whereby a lot of companies partake in enhancing their experience at CES, whether it's something as simple as a banner in terms of description, to a comprehensive conference program where they're actually participating in a track or participating in another venue that we might sponsor as well. We developed 3 or 4 years ago one of the most successful parts of the show to this day, an entire startup area called Eureka Park, which I'm
glad you brought that up. I was going to mention that.
Which is probably one of the most popular areas of the show. I understand in speaking to former colleagues, it was probably the most successful this past show. It is a curated area for startups only. They have to meet certain criteria. And if you saw news coming out of the show, a lot of it was coming out of Eureka Park and the startup area, which I know other shows, frankly, have tried to emulate within their vertical sectors. It's been a huge success at CES. And, Gary would always say that it's big open tent, that anybody with an idea has a home at CES. And I will tell you that is the attitude we adopted, not only with customers, with their new ideas, but prospects alike.
Well, and one of the things that I really love about Eureka Park is that's another one of the objections I hear from exhibitors a lot, or, small companies, is, there's no way we can play in these big arenas at major trade shows because it's cost prohibitive. But with Eureka Park, you were giving these startups a way to get their foot in the door and to get some visibility, and then, hopefully their business would just snowball, and then they would be back on the regular show floor in future years. So, well,
I would call it the regular show floor, quite frankly, because that's what it was and still is a part of. And you get many celebrities walking down those aisles. Many investors. Mark Cuban from Shark Tank and the owner of the Dallas Mavericks is a regular attendee there. It gives them an opportunity to stand out and have an experiential participation in CES. And again, I know we're going to be talking about Hargrove in a second, but that is a buzzword here. That is what we would try to do. If you go back to Gary's idea that anybody with an idea has a home, Eureka Park is an example where we highlighted those ideas, and to this day they still do, where people aren't, this CES, if people approach it right, and other trade shows as well, and I know from Hargrove we help them do that. If the show is approached properly, it doesn't matter how big it is, and it's a good thing when shows are big, obviously, as it relates to the strength and growth of the industry. Mm-hmm. But you really can become a show within a show, and you can make yourself stand out. You do have to make the investment in time and resources, even if you're a smaller exhibit. But that doesn't mean that you can't behave like a larger brand, and I think CES continues to this day to give people that opportunity.
Well, and I bet you mentioned about Mark Cuban walking the Eureka Park area. I bet that was a hot area for investors and as you said, Shark Tank, to check out all these new companies and see what's really up and coming and what they should invest in. So
certainly, and you know what, CES does it right. Whether it's the press or whether it's the investment community. They roll out the red carpet, not necessarily in terms of, perks and that sort of thing, but paying specific attention to these various sectors that these exhibitors want to see. There are specific tours that are curated. There are specific programs. I know when it comes to the press, there's a dedicated there's a couple satellite areas and the main press room where I think press people very much appreciate the opportunity to be able to do their work in relative quiet, and be able to interact with show management. So again, it's been an experience to cater not only to the attendee or to the exhibitor community, but obviously the attendees as well.
Well, and that could be a whole other interview all to itself, just dealing with the media, because obviously CES has probably one of the largest percentages of media people that attend.
Yep, they do. I'll refer you to my good friends in the communication department over there to speak to in the future.
That would be great. But, part of that is, too, again, like you said, it's about building relationships and thinking about what your audience, whether it be the exhibitors, we'll call them general attendees, or the media attendees. I mean, you've got to be tuned into what they're looking for and give them what they want. And, I think it's one of those things where it's not rocket science, but I think a lot of shows just don't take the time, as you said, with what you and your team were doing, talking with everybody individually and really finding out and tuning into that.
Right. Well, I'll tell you, and again, I would emphasize it wasn't just me and my team, although we certainly did that. All it took was one trip to Karen's office or Gary's office and said, look, can you accompany us with this visit to this customer? They would jump at that because they wanted to hear what was going on in the field. Nothing is ever promised to us. That's what Gary would always say. On a year-to-year basis, we're very fortunate. We do a lot of things right, but we certainly can hear from our clients, customers, our vendors, what have you, and what we can do better. So the listening aspect, not only is it important for my experience at CES, but in sales in general, there's no other endeavor that's more important in the sales process. Is what I cover mostly during my training sessions is the ability to listen and not just hear, but to listen to what's important to people about their world, not yours. We tend to get very autobiographical when we are in the process of selling any type of product, and we forget that while we can be very enthusiastic, our prospect doesn't necessarily share that enthusiasm. So, it's that saying, no one cares how much you know until they know how much you care, and I think that's what we were able to demonstrate with our clientele, and I know that's still going on to this day.
Right. Well, and another area that I know you are a huge advocate for is show audits, which for anybody listening who's not familiar, this is when the attendance data is verified by an independent third party, just like for magazine publications. And I know there's not a lot of shows out there that are using audits, but tell us a little bit about why you believe so strongly in audits and why it made a difference.
Well, when I or a sales rep or both, when we go out and meet with a client and we say that we have 152,000 people attending the show, we can prove that we're not necessarily fabricating that number. And I don't mean to sound accusatory at all, but sometimes when people are publishing their numbers, they are not necessarily fabricated, but it is not as scientific as an audit. CES was the first technology trade show in 1997 to employ an audit. They still do to this day. Their numbers are verified by an outside organization, so they can have the confidence of knowing and saying and declaring that their attendance numbers are such and such. And we're able to share other information with our when I participated, CES is able to share other information with their clientele with regard to the demographics and who's coming, and all that information is verified by a separate company. So I feel very strongly about that. It can be controversial. It's not like there are different companies that are trying to pull the wool over people's eyes, but I would challenge our customers if they were talking about another event at that particular time. I would say, is this event audited? When they tell you that there's 17,638 people there, what are those numbers based on? And I think it's a responsibility, frankly. I'll speak personally for myself, but thankfully CES shared that philosophy, or I shared CES philosophy that you have to stand behind what you're publishing. And unfortunately, the vast majority of show organizers don't audit. I think it's an important thing to consider. I understand when they don't, and it's none of my business, frankly, that they don't. I can only tell you about my personal philosophy, and it's one that I feel very, very strongly about. I chaired the committee on the auditing endeavor, if you will, for IEEE. And there are sort of the good housekeeping seal of approvals now for shows that are audited that get that IAEE check mark that they independently audit, or their show is independently verified. So it's a very, very important topic to me personally.
Well, and I agree. I think it seems to me like it should just be a no-brainer because, for one, it's not that complicated, it's not that expensive to have it done, and it just gives your show so much more credibility.
It's a credibility thing. Now here's why I think it's difficult for some, and I understand it. We took a chance, I think, from CES perspective, and I think the risk is worth it. But when we first started auditing, those numbers could show that they were different from what we were publicizing, not because of dishonesty, but just because an outside group is going to evaluate our numbers. I have a lot of respect for that particular decision. What if the numbers show differently? And I can tell you, we were prepared to either way publish what the audit said to us. Now, fortunately, the auditor, congratulated us on our standards and the way we audited our way we audited internally, and our numbers really matched up with what they came up to. And I think show managers sometimes are a little reticent or fearful of what an actual audit will show, because there might be disparity between what they are publishing and what the audit shows. I think that's an excellent opportunity for transparency. And can engender a tremendous amount of respect, and I respect the fact, and I'm grateful for the fact that almost 20 years ago CES made that very strategic decision, and to this day I think is applauded for it.
Well, and I agree, and hopefully more shows will recognize the benefit and the importance of doing that, and hopefully exhibitors will make that more of a priority for shows.
Yeah.
Well, let's shift gears and tell us a little bit more about your new role at Hargrove. I know.
Oh, my newest passion.
Hargrove is known for all kinds of events,
sure,
everything from trade shows to doing presidential inaugurations, and I know that the team there is very big on making an experiential event, which I love when I hear that concept. So tell us a little bit more about some of the different projects you're going to be able to work on now, or some of the projects that Hargrove has done.
Well, you know what? There are three main lines of business at Hargrove, which I'll get to in a second. But I like to, just because sometimes I'm blissfully ignorant, I like to introduce ourselves as an experiential marketing or experiential or experiential experts. It doesn't matter if we're building a beautiful handcrafted custom exhibit, or if we are serving as a general service contractor, or we are overseeing a gubernatorial inauguration or a presidential inauguration, or the lighting of the national Christmas tree. There's some really fun stuff that we do. But the buzzword, as I've said, in the course of our discussion here, is experience, is experiential. And I know without a shadow of a doubt in my mind that is the difference. Besides wonderful customer service, great quality work, a key distinguishing factor is the experience that we bring, the experiential experience that we bring to anything, whether, again, it's a building of a beautiful booth, whether it's overseeing a trade show or an event. We create memorable experiences, and it really isn't a tagline. I've seen it first and foremost in the various things that we do. We just finished up, many people, this is a timely interview, we just finished up this wonderful project at the Super Bowl for Bud Light. You might have seen the commercial with the human Pac-Man experience, and that was Hargrove. And I bring that up because not only was that just cool as hell, and that's going on the road nationally for others to see around the country, but it's that type of expertise and creativity that we can bring, and we do bring, to, as an example, running a particular trade show event as a general service contractor. I really do believe that gives us the edge. We have wonderful, wonderful people here, many of which have been here over 30 years, that take so much pride in what they do and so much pride in the company. We're a woman-owned business. And our president and CEO, Tim McGill and Carl Hargrove are great leaders, as well as my boss, Diana Simmons, who I had the honor of working for at National Trade Productions. They have a very strong belief system that it's not business as usual here, that it's not a cookie-cutter proposition when we go to a prospect or we're working with a current customer, that we've got to reinvent ourselves on their behalf or vice versa on every single, I hate to even call them projects, I'll call them experiences. We treat every single activity that we're working on as an experience and the opportunity to help our customer stand out. We really do emphasize and evangelize that stringently here, as we're not only bidding on business, but we're working with the current customers that we have.
Well, and I think that, you really have hit the nail on the head for the whole concept of this new Trailblazer series that I'm doing is, discovering what shows are doing that are making them more experiential, more memorable, because there's no reason that a trade show can't be just as exciting and just as memorable as, somebody attending a Super Bowl or attending a presidential inauguration. If more trade shows work towards making themselves on that kind of level as far as, experience and memorability, just look how this whole industry would explode.
I agree, and it's already a very, very successful industry, but I do think that's key. That Bon Jovi's got a song, Make a Memory, and I remember writing an article about that recently. I believe the company I work for does that in every single endeavor. It's in the company's DNA to do that, and I'm very proud about that. You don't have to remind anybody here about that. It's what makes us stand out, and that's in addition to, superior customer service, which, as we talked about before, is near and dear to me and certainly existed and still exists at CES. But putting on a different set of glasses as we approach something, as like a trade show, which is, let's face it, concrete in a convention center, and turning it into something very, very, very special with our creative expertise and our experiential expertise. Customers come back because of that, and they tell us that, and they are willing to invest because of that, because they know they're investing in an experience, and that makes us really stand out. We have, as you know, very formidable competition, from which I have many friends with our competitors. But I am so proud of this company and so honored to be part of it because of this different paradigm, this different perspective. I sit in meetings and they're interesting and valuable and colorful because of these brilliant people that I work with that are so creative. And there's also a strong effort, something I'm trying to encourage, and that has been underway for quite a while, is a lot of crosswork between all the business development people, whether they're involved in events or custom exhibits or trade shows. A lot of the cliche of cross-pollination that's taking place, and that's fun. That's fun to be able to bounce ideas off each other, go into customers and speak to them as part of a team rather than individually. I believe it's something that makes the whole experience from a sales perspective even that more exciting and meaningful.
Well, and there's no questioning your enthusiasm, Dan, that's for sure.
Yeah.
It is very obvious at this point. So I think, and the biggest part about it is the more you make it very memorable and experiential for your client, which would be the show organizers, then therefore it's going to be that much more memorable for their exhibitors and their attendees, and everybody is going to come out of it feeling like it was more than, like you said, more than just walking a show floor on a piece of concrete and actually participating in a memorable experience. So
we take great pride in transforming events into that, and whether it's a trade show or a special event, that's our differentiator, always will be. It goes all the way back to our founding with Mr. Hargrove, and we're very proud of that.
Well, and it's more than just checklists and logistics. It's definitely, there's a lot of strategy and a lot of creativity that goes behind it, too.
You're right on the money. Spot on.
So, well, Dan, I want to thank you so much for being our very first Trailblazer guest on Trade Show Insights. And I wish you much success in your new position. I think that it sounds like you've got lots of fabulous ideas and lots of great projects you're going to be working on, and we'll just have to watch where you go from here.
Thanks so much, Marla. It's a pleasure to be with you, and thanks for having me.
If you'd like to spread the word about the Trade Show Insights podcast, please take a minute to leave a rating and or review in iTunes. This helps to boost visibility so more people will find the show. Trade Show Insights is protected by the Creative Commons copyright license. You may feel free to share this recording with colleagues or embed it in your own blog as long as it's shared in its entirety and is not used for commercial purposes. To learn more, please see the link in the sidebar of the show notes at tradeshowinsights.com. Well, that's it for this episode of Trade Show Insights. Be sure to check out our show notes and archives at tradeshowinsights.com or connect with me using the social media links or contact page on the site. I'm Marlis Arnold. Thanks for listening, and be sure to join us next time for more tools to improve your exhibit results.